MPH student at the University of Nottingham in UK. So today I'm going to talk about One Health status in Africa. So I'll basically talk about the different One Health activities going on in Africa and demonstrate examples of how successful and the challenges One Health implementation in Africa has faced. And also I'll briefly talk about on how we can be able to integrate One Health with other holistic concepts, e.g. eco-health and planetary health. So at the human, animal, and ecosystem interface or environmental interface, we have three holistic concepts, which I'm aware you have interacted with either one or all of them. So we have planetary health, eco-health, and also the One Health concept. So today I'm only going to focus on one, and that is One Health. One Health has been defined as that collaborative effort of multiple disciplines working together from the environment sector, human health sector, and animal health sector, and with one aim to attain optimal health for both human beings, animals, and the environment. So initially, when the concept started, it was not that broad in nature, but if you look at the current efforts, you realize that they are trying to add other multiple disciplines to it to make it more holistic and encompassing in nature. So what are the benefits of applying this One Health approach? Initially, it was a concept, but nowadays we do say that it is an approach because we are using it is an approach we are using to be able to implement or do things. So you realize that it results in cost savings. So from the available literature, it shows that if projects are implemented using this approach, then it results in some cost savings in a way in that the amount spent implementing a project is lower compared to when it is done in silos. And also it has helped us be able to understand, look at and understand complex systems. For example, the coexistence and interaction between human beings and animals and the environment. It is like a wicked problem, and One Health helps us a lot to be able to understand it. And also it supports communication and coordination in terms of global health security issues. People from diverse sectors are able to collaborate well together. And also available literature research, recent research also shows that it results in higher statistical power, hence demonstrating relationships. For example, from available studies in the rabies sector, it demonstrates more statistical power as compared to studies that are done from one sector alone. So that is one of the benefits of using the One Health approach, especially in both implementation of programs and also research. So we are looking at a particular continent, Africa, which has multiple challenges. So why is One Health so important to Africa? Most of you come from Africa and you realize that Africa has a young population, most of them, and its population is also increasing. And then you realize due to this, we also have infrastructural and urbanization going on in the continent. And this has resulted in encroachment on previously unsettled on areas like forests. And also people in Africa live in close interaction with humans and the environment. And considering that nearly 60% of non-human pathogens, especially those that cause infectious diseases, are zoonotic, and 75% of emerging pathogens are zoonotic, just like most likely, it is likely that the pandemic we are dealing with is also zoonotic. And then you realize that most of these infections occur in Africa. So Africa is a special continent whereby it is faced by multiple challenges, but it has limited, finite resources to be able to deal with these challenges. So this presents a good case to be able to apply a multidisciplinary collaborative approach in tackling them. So let us look at what is being done in terms of One Health. How far is Africa? What is the status of its application and implementation in Africa? So if you look at the map on my presentation, you'll see that we have some, I'm not good at colors, but we have some circles circled around. You realize that most networks on One Health initiatives are concentrated in East Africa, around Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. You can see we have more than 100, around 101. This new was done last year, but there should be more networks. Then southern parts of Africa, you'll see we have more networks. Then we have some in the central parts of Africa and also west of Africa. So I think the map mainly concentrated on sub-Saharan Africa. So the ones that are not shaded are mostly excluded, usually left out when classifying sub-Saharan Africa. So from that map, we realize we have more networks dealing with One Health issues. And from my next slide, I'm just highlighting some of the major One Health teams that are working in Africa. So the major one, you realize that most of them are more of collaboration between academic institutions, like the African One Health University Network. It brings together universities from different regions of Africa to be able to collaborate and do projects and teach using this approach, especially to their health, human health and animal health students. Then you will also note, for example, most of them, like this one is funded mostly by USAID. Then we have the South African Center for Infectious Disease and Surveillance. This is mostly in southern parts of Africa. We have the African Science Partnership for Intervention, Research and Excellency. This one is more of in West Africa, headquartered in Burkina Faso. Then we also have the One Health Regional Network for the Horn of Africa. This is more of a research and training, capacity building based in countries around East and Central Africa. We have Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, Tanzania, and the neighboring countries. We also have the Global One Health Initiative, which is more headquartered in Ethiopia, but works in Kenya, Tanzania, and the neighboring countries. We have Thrive, and then Predict Consortia. I know this one works worldwide, but it also does a lot of work, especially tracking new infectious diseases in Africa and other parts of the world also. So apart from that, we also have many more which don't necessarily deal with One Health alone, but they have at least a department or are doing something with regards to One Health. And I'll highlight one particular innovative one, the Kemri Wellcome Trust Rift Valley Fever Vaccine Program. So we have a vaccine that was developed by Oxford by a researcher at Kemri Wellcome Trust for Rift Valley fever. So it is an interesting one simply because they're trying the same vaccine, they're trialing it, that is used, proved to be effective in animals. They're trying to reformulate it to use the same in human beings in what is known as One Health vaccinology. And that might be a game changer and might prove how effective One Health might be in the future fight of pandemics and diseases, both at the human and animal health interface. So apart from that, we also have government managed programs that governments across Africa are trying to adopt the One Health approach in one or several of their departments, a case being the Kenya Zoonotic Disease Unit, and it is charged with the implementation of One Health in Kenya. So it mostly does advocacy work and mostly deals with zoonotic diseases. Then we also have the Cameroon Zoonosis Program. We have the Coordinating Office for Control of Trypanosomiasis in Uganda. So this is just a highlight, but you realize we have many more using the One Health or that have developed policies to be able to implement One Health. And Rwanda is a good example because recently they just passed a bill that is promoting the use of One Health in solving human health, animal health, and environmental health challenges using the One Health approach. So from Africa, what we have we seen any benefits of the application of One Health in this region? Yes, we have, and from available literature, it has been highlighted, for example, joint vaccination of both animals and children in pastoralist communities that has been done in Chad, and it was also done in Kenya, had some economic savings. In short, it was cost effective and also resulted in increased coverage of vaccination programs. Then we also have integrated zoonosis disease surveillance that was done in Ethiopia, and it helped provide the link between TB in bovines and also in human beings, which are interesting cases. So I've just highlighted a few due to time, but we have many more that demonstrates how the effectiveness of this One Health approach. But it also has its own limitations, and I've just also tried to highlight a few. And one of the main challenges of One Health that is limiting its implementation is its successful integration. While if you look at its framework, they try to highlight that it connects both animal, human health, and the environment. But in most cases, you realize it centers more on zoonosis. So it leaves out the environment aspect. And you realize that in most of their activities, they have found it difficult integrating the environmental aspect into their operations. And also because it was initially initiated by people working in the veterinary sector, and also maybe later joined by human health sector, it resulted in a bias. So it mostly focuses on these human animal health sectors, ignoring other sectors, even though we have efforts recently whereby they have tried to integrate other professions into it. So the community of One Health is facing also a bigger challenge of being able to demonstrate the impact of its application to policymakers, simply because it is something that requires long-term follow-up, long-term tracking, and also some innovative methods to be able to identify metrics for assessing and evaluating its effectiveness. So in Africa, what are the challenges that the application of One Health is facing? So we don't have that political goodwill for its implementation, simply because policymakers need immediate tangible results, which might not be seen immediately with One Health. And also you realize from the initiatives I've highlighted, most of them are foreign funded. So we don't have local funding for most of the initiatives. And also we have a challenge translating One Health's collaboration outputs into policies and applicable solutions in most of activities. So how can One Health be integrated with other holistic concepts, that is planetary health and eco health? So this is a question I don't have an answer to, but it will be a good, interesting discussion case when we are discussing and during the questions time. So what is the way forward for Africa? So we need locally bred and resourced initiatives to implement One Health, so that we control and drive the agenda, simply because, yes, while we appreciate what partners are doing, we also need to drive the agenda because Africans understand better the problems they are facing. Then another thing, we also need the champions of One Health to be able to collect and provide government and decision makers data that is impactful, that they can be able to use to inform policy. So at least people working in the One Health need to do more to provide tangible evidence to be able to, or evidence that can be able to inform policy. So ACOPPHE, what can ACOPPHE do? Because ACOPPHE brings together members from working in the different, promoting the different concepts, One Health, planetary health, and the eco health. So it can play a role by bridging the divide that currently exists and provide an inclusive platform where different organizations promoting the different concepts can collaboratively work together and integratively in order to attain, to promote sustainable Africa and attain optimal health for the African continent. Thank you for your time. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Prodas, for that very informative presentation. So we're going to go into questions. So if you have any question, if any one of us have a question, if you can just raise your hand, and we will be checking to see, and then we can take maybe 2 or so questions. As of now, we don't have any raised hands. So if you have a question, if you can come in, just the first person.
And maybe just to give a little bit of a nudge, if Sam Wanjohi connected to Afrohun, or Yokai, who is also a One Health student, or James Fumba, who is working in Liberia and has interacted with the government One Health platform in Liberia, in case any of you have insights to share from your direct experience, we'll also appreciate. Or even Nightingale, your experiences in Liberia. You also interacted with the government program there and are taking the One Health course through Glasgow.
Oh, sorry, I missed that prompt. Maybe I can go ahead and share my experience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Protest, for a great presentation. So I'm currently doing my master's in global health delivery, and I'm with the One Health track at the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda. And my experience so far, like it was fairly new when I joined the program. I wasn't really familiar with One Health or Planetary Health. But so during my program, we did like a field trip across several sites in Rwanda as part of our learning program, where we visited like a rice plantation and meal collection center. And as One Health students, we were supposed to assess these sites and use the One Health approach to figure out how much of the principles that they adopt and how we can assist these sites in terms of improvement. So I feel like it's a fairly new field, and most institutions or sites that may benefit from it are not aware. But in case of Rwanda, I feel like with institutions like UGHE, they're trying to support and spread this kind of knowledge. And we had like one site in particular. If people can have time, they can check it out. It's called Umusambi Village. So it's a sanctuary for an endangered species, a type of birds. And I think amongst all the sites that we visited, that site, they have adopted the One Health approach. It's like amongst their mission. And in terms of how they run that sanctuary, they have consideration for the ecosystem. So they got land from the government to build that sanctuary around like a wetland, and they did not destroy it because they wanted to preserve it. So everything that they do, they have like consideration for either vegetation or even plants plants or animals that have been there. So for me, I think that was like one site that I liked in particular, that was like really adopting the One Health approach and with consideration with the environment, the animals, as well as human health, because they're also like doing studies about diseases as well that can be passed on from humans to animals or from animals to humans. Yeah, so that's my experience. Thank you.
All right. I think, can I talk now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Protos has done a very wonderful work and going into the detail of what Africa stands to be when it comes to the issue of One Health, especially the gap that he flagged out, the interconnection, that is the integration of One Health, portion, the one that has to do with animal, the one that has to do with environment, and the one that has to do with human. That integration is not really being felt fully in Africa, particularly Liberia. As history can record, many of our zoonotic problems come from this side of the world, especially the issue of Ebola crisis came from Africa, and Liberia was hardly hit up. And that we believe we got MPhil in our country. It is responsible for the surveillance conditions. But one of the challenges that we stand to face here right now is the issue of how this integration can really take effect. We still see a bulk of our population going into bushes and hunting, using bushmeat as a source of money making. I mean, so people have not realized in my country that those animals that are in our various forests here deserve some level of preservation and not necessarily to be used as food. But for us, that is not a problem, and people go about hunting bushmeat and then eating them, I mean, with no severe penalty. Like you mentioned, the issue of policymakers, I think we have to quote unquote, pay more attention on the issue of policy to see how best these problems can be alleviated from Africa. So Protos, thank you so much for the presentation. I really love it. Thank you.
So I guess to just the final words is thanks again, Protos, for this important discussion. And one of the big questions that I continue to ask myself is how we can implement, One Health or these concepts, bring them home onto the ground into our communities. I really like what Yukai shared, but also thinking about how it can actually be implemented into our communities. This is something that, like Fumba was saying, has somewhat been, there's this idea that has started to happen within Liberia, but it's really more and more just seeing how that can happen in our communities. I think that'll be great. So maybe Protos, if you have just a few words just to say, how can this happen in the communities? I know it might also touch on the policymakers a little bit, but that would be great.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'll combine your question with what has been posted in the chat by Martin about the link, how much or easy or welcome with difficulty this One Health integration is in countries' context. So you realize sometimes we have two approaches. There's where top-down approach can be used and bottom-up approach can be used. So it will be better for implementation or for integration purposes to involve the communities, because if we involve the communities from the start of these projects, the communities will be aware that such projects, first of all, the communities need to know that for example, issues to do with animal, human, and the environment are related, and they can be solved together. So if we involve the communities in the implementation of such projects, they'll know that these things, the health of animals, for example, is related to health of human beings. I'll give a case of rabies, I'll use rabies. If the communities know that rabies that affect animals, they can easily, or they can get rabies from animals through animals' bites. So if you educate them the link that exists between the two, then they'll be aware that they need to vaccinate their dogs, not because for the sake of the dog, even if they don't love dogs, but also for the sake of their health. So we need, first of all, to educate the community members to be able to know that there's a link between their health and the health of the environment and the health of animals as a starting point. Then after that, if the communities are aware, then we can exert pressure, or we can be able to engage policymakers to be able to push them to be able to make policies that promote the integration of the different sectors. And the best case scenario, policymakers if you look at literature where it has succeeded, it all begins with from the grassroots, because they always follow, politicians always follow what their people want. So if they know that in the community, people want these things to be done together, they'll do the same. And also they want immediate results. They want to be seen as working. And if we can be able to show them tangible results, that this thing can give results in 1 month, it can result, for example, you'll not see rabies cases in your area, then they will be more willing to promote such kind of initiatives for it to be implemented in their area, so that people can be able to see that they are working. So it's all, the first initial step then should be for the integration. How we can be able to integrate is educating community members and then engaging policymakers in all the projects, One Health programs and projects that we do.
Thank you very much, Protas, for that response. I think, Nathan, how are we doing on time? Do we move on to the next, or do we have time for anything else for Protas?
Well, maybe we can move on, but in case anyone else has ongoing thoughts or questions for Protas, we can still engage in the chat. But otherwise, our plans for the presentations today were to somehow embody the importance of accessibility to communities. And in that way, we have some of the presentations more formal or academic, balanced together with art and some music and poems. So I just want to check and see, Gugu, I know you are prepared, I believe, with a poem. So if now is a good time, I know it's a little bit out of the order as it's indicated on the agenda, but if you're ready to share, we can do that now. Otherwise, we have a song from Zoe that we could do. But any thoughts, Gugu?
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks, Prati, for the nice presentation. I think it speaks very closely to the little collection of quotes that I have here. I did not do a poem because I was told there will be a poem. So if you would allow me to project just a little bit from my side, let me just see if okay. I just want to double check how I can project from my end. Just sorry about that. Okay. Maybe I'll just not project. It doesn't reflect the part that allows me to project.
Is share screen? Does share screen show up? I had made you a co-host.
Okay. There we go. Share.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's reflecting from your side. So what I thought of putting together really is like sort of an open discussion to say why ACOPPHE, and I titled it The Art and Heart Behind This Precious Name. Okay. So I just need to. So the question is, one would ask, why ACOPPHE? We are an organization that yearns to see Africa doing all it can for the environment, to see our neighborhoods free from debt, our rivers free from pollutants, our lands free from erosion, and our skies free from thick air. The less pollution there is, the better it will be for our next generation. Again, one would ask, why ACOPPHE? It is because we are a team of dedicated individuals filled with smiles, yet with one cry within our hearts, which is the degeneration of our environment. Again, if one would ask, why ACOPPHE? We meet as professionals and members of civil society with diverse backgrounds, but our goal is one: to save the environment. Really, somebody would ask again, why ACOPPHE? It is because this is a safe space where we put our heads together, regardless of who we are, what part of the world we come from, because we understand one thing: climate change is upon us, and we need to do something about it before it is too late. Yet again, when we're faced with the question, why ACOPPHE? It is because we understand that we are faced with the mammoth task to look after our environment, not just for ourselves, but for the sake of those who need a safer world to live in. We all take our time to do what is right, because we know that nothing will ever be right until we make the right efforts to look after Mother Nature. We are united for the sake of what we love, and that is the environment. Thank you.
That is beautiful, Gugu. Thank you very much for sharing. Nathan, back to you.
Yeah, Nightingale, we didn't hear you, I don't think, because of the delay. So maybe if you could just unmute sooner before you start speaking, then we'll be able to hear you, I think, because of that delay. But thank you so much, Gugu. That was very moving and touching, and certainly agree that is who we are, and that is why ACOPPHE. So thank you for bringing that home so powerfully. And just to open it up, if anyone would like to share thoughts about those messages, feel free. The floor is open. And otherwise, I think that is a challenge for each of us as we think about why we are here, what we can do together, and also how we can connect with others. Those are very important messages for us to know how to share, because the truth is there is a lot of harm and hurt and pain and suffering in the world that is both within the human communities and within the other animal and plant communities that we sorry, are so much a part of. And so we need to think about ways that we can restore and heal the brokenness, and show everyone why love for the environment is not love for something external. It's actually love for ourselves, love for our children, and love for life itself. So I will welcome Chanel and Bwalia to come in next with your presentations.
Trying to share my sorry.
I think it seems like Gugu, please unshare. I think your slides are still on. That way, Chanel is able to share.
Okay, I've just paused.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm so sorry. So we are going through load shedding at the moment. So, but electricity should be back in the next 15 minutes. Yes. I hope everyone is. So I'm just gonna start off.
So just an idea, if it would be easier to wait for you another 15 minutes, then we could maybe have Samuel and Mona present first and then go to Chanel and Walia. Would that make it a little easier?
Yes, that will make it a little easier for us. Thank you.
Okay. So I see Mona is already moving forward. Thank you, Mona.
Thanks, Nathan. Samuel, are you ready? Yes. Samuel, how are you doing? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. It is my pleasure to be with you here with the ACOPPHE team and with my colleague Samuel to present and to discuss how planetary health approaches can change our approach to maternal health in our changing landscape and in our era of environmental degradation. Okay, Samuel, can you say hi to the audience? All right.
Mona.
So I see that Samuel is unmuted, but I'm not hearing him. I don't know if others are also. Yes. So Samuel, I don't know if you have an issue with the audio possibly.
Yeah, I think it's the audio.
How about now? How is it?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's proceed. So greetings once again to everyone. I'm Samuel, and it's a pleasure to be here. Wonderful time I hope we have. I'll be partnering Mona for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Okay, so the central theme or the central idea was brought up from the central idea of the conference about generation restoration. And here we are facing a lot of challenges in the African continent. And we need to ask ourselves, how can we revitalize the African identity? Because as we all know that the cultural traits are somehow functional because they still exist till nowadays and they perform some functions, and we can see that in indigenous knowledge systems that was brought up again by the planetary health initiatives. And so there is no doubt that the culture in Africa exerts a tremendous influence on all aspects of health, on the healthcare, on health seeking, and also on other behaviors related to health issues. So it's truly a complex one with a very strong influence of health trajectories. And so this is why the disclosure of health in Africa can never be complete without the cultural discourse. All of you know that traditions, costumes, values, norms, and also how people live in Africa, this really determines how the whole continent is shaped. Samuel, if I can have your reflection on this photo and on the central idea of revitalizing the African identity and why is it important?
I think for me it's important because, like we've always said in ACOPPHE here, we need to consider African problems from an Afrocentric point of view. And we have beautiful opportunities on our hands. Africa happens to have the youngest population worldwide, as we have the youngest population globally. We have an opportunity to channel this youthful energy of our population towards revitalizing our continent and engaging in planetary and individual healthy activities. And so I think we need to begin this from my point of view. We need it from every point possible, irrespective of gender or race or whatsoever. But it's also very important to look at how we can consider this from the child's perspective, the perspective of the mother, the woman generally, and the children, because the future of Africa revolves around these two persons. And that is why I think it's going to be a beautiful presentation as we go through and continue to explore the other things we want to talk about.
Thank you, Sammy, and we really encourage any interactive facilitation to enrich the topic. So our question now, how can we live more sustainably and promote planetary health? Can planetary health concepts offer a holistic way to understand the human health and also to provide a buffering environmental sustainable opportunities for us to move forward in our African challenges? As you can see here in the photo, this is part of the lung that has been eroded. This is like an analogy that we have many of the word system being eroded. This became very visible after the corona pandemic, actually. And about the approaches that planetary health can offer, planetary health is really spacious. It combines different science, health science with natural science, and most importantly, arts and humanities. So this interdisciplinary field can offer a lot to maternal child health, as we can discuss later. Okay, so our presentation contains a lot of artistic and visionary photographies. And this one in particular, Samuel, you told me about this artist. Can you mention something about this brilliant artist?
Okay, his name is Edosa Victor. The name of the artist, Edosa Victor, is a very interesting and creative photographer in Nigeria. If you go through his page on social media, you go through his Instagram page, his Facebook pages, you would see the kinds of pictures he creates. From this one you're looking at particularly, you'll be so surprised what he did to get this particular shoot. It looks very beautiful when it's made and when it's all done, but the process of creating it, he used very things you would not think of. The calabash you see there might be an old one and broken one, and he just has a way of using these things to create beautiful pictures that reflects the beauty of Africa in a natural setting.
Thank you, Sam. This really means a lot that the spirit from Nigeria has that talent. And we need to emphasize that while we are moving forward with our presentation, because we will show some other visionary arts that stands for meaningful things in planetary health. So about our outline, first of all, we need to explore the African landscape, and then what the changes has happened to the urban communities and also the rural communities, and then the overall impacts on our health and also on maternal child health in specific, and the global planetary health to generalize. Okay, so now we will have a look at this interactive chart that reveals a lot of the tremendous influence of culture on the African identity. We have race, age, gender, educational level, morals, and also health beliefs, customs, economic class and income, ethnic background, and also the indigenous knowledge. Beside all this, we need to speak in the context. If we are speaking in specific about the language, there are more than 1,000 languages adopted in the African continent, and the pattern even changes within families, within certain occupations, with the background of migratory history, and also if the individual is urban or rural dweller, so that you will find something like foreign languages used while speaking. Okay, you have any reflection, Samuel, on this?
No. You've done very beautiful on that. Other than just to add that this is a beautiful graphic that shows the importance of interconnections of all the approaches we might want to bring towards controlling planetary problems or whatsoever the problems of Africa. We need to understand that our problems do not stand in isolation. There's this interconnection, and so when we try to find solutions, if we're going to get the best of outcomes, we need to adopt integrated approach where you consider the spectrum of problems not in isolation but as one, and then finding an approach that at the same time answers many of those problems singularly but from the holistic perspective. So nice one there. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Actually, like using a single prescription or a universal language that any illnesses or any challenging thing is really not the right way, because even here we didn't mention that spirituality, religion, and also the educational background plays a major role in determining the how people react to anything new even. So by changing landscape, we mean changing how people live, simply. Not digging deep into the etiology of environmental degradation and all the stuff like this. I have a medical background, so I usually focus on the health pattern. And if we see how people's life has changed from rural to urban communities, this means that the mindset of these people living traditionally has shifted to modernity. And this also influences how people behave, how people eat, how people have diseases. The pattern of diseases itself is really different from rural communities to urban communities. So these are the driving factors that lead this migratory movement from rural to urban. And as we said, there are multiple factors. I know Protus and Chanel will cover this in details, and Protus really gave such a beautiful talk on that. And so we will not dig deep into this part of the environmental impact. But simply to put things together, the deforestation, the construction of dams, what else we have, soil erosion, all this provided new focuses for vector-borne diseases like malaria or waterborne diseases like schistosomiasis to prevail in urban communities. And this proximity to the wildlife also made the urban dwellers to suffer from many diseases. Okay, so about the urban communities, nowadays in most big cities, we have urban communities and rural areas. We need to speak in the core that environmental exposure is really fundamental to the health status. Because after we managed to know all about the genetics, we had a great opportunity to know how these genes are expressed and how genetic modulations allow the turning on, turning off of these genes. And this could be by diet, stress, drugs, smoking, less exercise, socioeconomic status, taking drugs. You have a lot of things to add to this list. So this could be really fundamental to explain something like this case scenario of Hind. She's 54 years old. She's married with 2 grown-up children. She has low education, and her general practitioner is really doesn't really know how to deal with all her comorbidities together. Has long-standing medical record of hypertension, diabetes type 2, overweight, asthma, chronic widespread pain, and low bone density, depression with anxiety. And despite having all this list of comorbidities, she still smokes despite the advice. So can we explain this, Samuel, this case scenario, putting it together with the environmental factors?
Yeah, I would say, you see, when I look at things like this, it takes us back to one of the very important underlying problems Africa is having, and that is Western influence, trying to live like the Westerners. Sometimes I was talking with a colleague of mine sometimes, and I told him that when the Spaniards and the Brits and the Portuguese, when they invaded Africa and took us, our forefathers rather, as slaves into the western part of the world, one of the things they actually admired about Africans was our sturdy nature. This was because of the kind of cultural habits Africans generally had, as at that time, the kind of food, the kind of practices we engage in. It gave us the strength, and some of the sicknesses that plagued the Western world and plagued the whites, so to say, the white people, was not very, Africans were not very susceptible to these diseases. But you realize now that from an epidemiological point of view, Africa is understood to be going through a demographic shift. We have a burden of communicable diseases that we're trying to deal with. We should not begin to, because presently we are staring down the barrel of a double burden of disease. That's, we have the non-communicable diseases like malaria, the neglected tropical diseases, and all of them. And then we're beginning to adopt the lifestyle of Westerners, eating food that are not healthy, like the pizza. It's just like what you see here. We exercise less. We do not engage. Africans generally feel that if I have a car, I should not be walking any distance. So even when I want to go to the grocery store, I need to drive down to that place. And our children are also adopting this lifestyle of ease. Every child just sits at home, sees the TV for extended hours, and all these things. When you look at all these things, we say disease is an outcome of multiple the interplay of 3 distinct factors, as the environmental factor, the individual or lifestyle factor, and then the genetic factor. And so we're blessed with very good genes, but if we allow environmental degradation, if we fail to preserve our environment, and then we lose our cultural strength by trying to imitate the Western culture and live the Western lifestyle of eating unhealthy diet and doing things just the way the white man does it, so we can look Western and civilized, I think it's not going to help us. Our mothers, and majorly I call this to the mothers, because I feel the change we seek in this area, it is the women who play a very important role. Women are, to a large extent in Africa, the ones who define the kind of diets children eat. And if I, as a woman, for instance, if I'm a woman and I teach my children to feed on healthy diet, they in turn would also teach their children to do the same. But if I fail to teach my children that, look, you do not need to eat pizza and lots of cheese and drink lots of carbonated drinks to be a good person, you can adopt healthier food, healthier eating habits and still be very, very good. It helps because it reduces the vulnerability of the individual, it reduces the vulnerability of the person, and it helps to develop our immune system. And just like we have in this graphics we're looking at here, it's an interplay. If you're able to do good in your lifestyle, if you have very nice lifestyle, it helps you, because epigenetics is the interplay of all these many things, right? From before conception, during the time the child is in the womb, and even after birth, there's that interplay of environmental factors, individual lifestyle of the mother and the child, and then the genes. So I think Africa needs to and look back and look at what our cultural heritage is. Why were we admired? And let's try to stick somehow. I'm not against civilization, but we should only pick the positive sides of civilization and not pick the negative that would also jeopardize our health.
Thank you, Samuel. Let's dig deeper into the communicable diseases also, but here we need to say that it's how you nourish your body. Just like this tree, the environmental conditions affect how your body reacts to the diseases, for example. Moving to the rural communities, and this beautiful painting, the historical one, reveals how the river Nile can offer life and at the same time can offer disease. As most of us know, the snails live in the bed of the river Nile, and it causes a waterborne parasitic infection like schistosomiasis. We also need to refresh our knowledge about what else do we have as infectious diseases and how they are transmitted. So basically, we have general transmission from water, wind, or from animal vectors, like mosquitoes, malaria, dengue fever, fleas, bubonic plague, and also we have human-to-human transmission. That's what we are suffering nowadays from, the droplet infection of the coronavirus, the airborne diseases in direct contact, and all these the never-ending list of infectious diseases that is usually accidental or due to a particular exposure. We need here to say that according to scientific studies, a lot of them actually, the study of man as an integrated unit of the ecosystem in which he functions is usually neglected, and a very different kind of knowledge is needed to understand the nature and all the forces that maintain man as an integrated state physically, psychologically, and enable him to successfully adapt to his environment. This was in 1965 when Dubus scientists mentioned that. Now we are living in a major paradox. We have been suffering from the coronavirus, and we need to change our mindset and in a positive way. Regarding this visionary art, I would like to extend my acknowledgement to Professor Susan Prescott, President of the In Vivo Planetary Health, for providing that. This cell that you can see from the very beginning of the photo, it reflects our immune cell, and how we have a lot of immunogens in our external environment, and how this external environment can extend from the diet that we eat, the methods of communication that we use, cigarette smoking, disrupted sleep rhythm, stress, chronic stress. So we can say countless list on that. And also, it's very important to know that culture cannot be separated from medicine. In 2014, the Lancet Commission on Culture and Health, they argued that the systemic neglect of culture in health is the single biggest barrier to the advancement of the high standards of health worldwide. So by combining the biopsychosocial aspects of our children, our females and their maternal health, we need also to remember that natural science and health science, there is no boundaries between them. So the soft science should be integrated with the hard science, and also the influence of art really has a lot of meanings in transforming the message. So Samuel, if I asked you, what is the difference between a child playing outdoors like this and a child playing on a video game, for example, or nowadays they have a lot of these games like, I don't know, there are a lot of them. So what do you think about the health status of both children in these two photos?
Okay, I think it's very very obvious for people in the health practitioner and maybe everyone in the room that the picture you have on the left, where you have the kid playing outside, interacting with his environment and other factors of the ecosystem, that child will have a better health outcome, irrespective of the little cases of maybe communicable diseases like waterborne diseases that he might pick up as he's growing. But the one on the right hand, where you have this child sitting in front of a screen, this child is way more predisposed to several negative health outcomes. For example, this child has a high tendency of having an eye defects, especially cornea bruising, because of the continued exposure to extreme lights, and you call it Blu-ray from mobile devices. At the same time, in Africa now, we're beginning to discover increase in cases of child obesity because our children no longer exercise as they used to do. And so children wake up in the morning and prepare for school. They are driven in vehicles to their schools, and then they sit in class for prolonged hours, and then they come back home and they sit back in the house and just stay indoors. Some of them spend the rest of the evening in their rooms, just moving from the bed to the chairs in the room, and this have negative health outcomes on the children. Like I was saying some time ago, I remember when I was growing up as a child, not to say I'm an adult now or very well advanced in age, but in that little span between the time I experienced childhood and now when I see children experiencing childhood, I tend to ask myself, what could have changed so radically? Because we had the opportunities after school to interact with our friends. We had the opportunities to interact with our environment. We were given specified time periods when we played outside in the compound with other people living around us. And it helps to build our psychomotor skills. It helps to build our social factors, our social quotient. We're able to develop very healthy interactive, how to interact with people around you. But now, my youngest brother, for example, is a very good case study in this regards. While I was able to develop this part of me and I find it very easy, although for a large part of my life it was difficult for me to express myself in public. But over time, because of the continued exposure and the push from the environment that I had to do it, I began to develop that part of me. But him, on the other hand, he spent most of his days indoors, just from school to the house. He's had little interaction with the environment, little interaction with peers, other than in school. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm trying to change that part of him, and it's very difficult. I think he's 19 years already, and it's difficult for him to do that. He spends much of his time indoors, and then when people come around and I try to push him out, he finds it very difficult to interact with people. You see, so these are some of the negative impacts of I won't say civilization altogether, but when you accept civilization without creating an avenue for children to interact with the environment and to interact with their peers, it destroys certain parts of their life. And at the same time, it also predisposes them to some negative health outcome. Look at this child on the left. He would have been exposed, play with the sand, play with dirty water. It's just like when you have an attenuated vaccine given to a child. It helps the immune system to develop itself and fight the invasion of this bacteria. The child, on the other hand, is not exposed. In the event that there is an outbreak and he has any kind of infection, there is little chance compared to the other that his system will be prepared for it. So there are lots and lots of these things and the impacts we can discuss, but because of time, I just want to give that brief overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. We're really running out of time. Here, I just want to elaborate on what you say, that mental health is affected and also the behavioral changes are manifest in those children using the screens. And also in the other picture, we see like the microbes, early exposure to microbes. This trains the immune system and provide diverse microbiome in the gut of that child and protect that child against various pathogens. So playing outside is always healthy. This chart, it summarizes everything about the short-term, long-term, the local, global, and all the visionary boundaries that we need to hone while addressing anything complex like health. we need also to be mindful about the indigenous knowledge system, which is very, very important in our African context. Okay, to put this in a more tangible way, we spoke about diseases, communicable and non-communicable diseases, and we spoke about the how our body reacts and the importance of the immune system, how it becomes really vitalized by the diversity of the microbiome. And to make it more simple, we need to re-emphasize on how we can live more sustainably and promote planetary health. Simply by one thing, if we are speaking about the mother-child health, we need to have this wise decision when we offer our kids food, because we have a lot of advertisements, a lot of environmental cues that promote the feeling of social inferiority and make us more attracted to bring ourselves something like fast food or anything that are calorie rich, and at the end they have poverty in the content, the caloric, the nutritious content. So by this we end, and we just need to mention some future perspectives, prospects, if you can highlight them, Samuel. We need to...
The future prospects here, I would say we need to adopt a better approach to African problems, and that is we need to appreciate traditional food. We need to encourage social bonding, sustainable approaches to African problems. We need to also appreciate indigenous wealth, indigenous knowledge, and cultural diversity. We need to take responsibility for our problems, and that is one thing I really want to spend a few more seconds on. I think it's high time we dissociate ourselves from this mentality of the victim mentality, feeling that we've suffered in the past and as such we are liable to continue to pass blame. It's high time Africa rose up and began to take responsibility for her problems. Malaria, for example, over 60% of the funding for malaria and HIV is coming from outside Africa, and the highest disease burden is in Africa. I think our governments need to understand this. What if something happens and the source of these funds suddenly goes away? It puts so much of our people at risk. You know, sometime Donald Trump threatened to withdraw from the WHO. The continent that was going to suffer the most from that was Africa. And this is because we've not taken responsibility for our health. We've not taken responsibility for our problems. Africa needs to adopt Afrocentric approaches and Afrocentric dialogues. Nigeria with other countries in Africa, Egypt and Kenya and Namibia and South Africa. We need to find a way without having to go to the West. All African countries should come together and find a way to develop Africa as a continent, because we must accept this as a fact. We do not have any other person to call on than ourselves. And so Africa needs to rise up to the occasion and do better. I think that is the best way we can forge ahead without necessarily jeopardizing our environmental heritage.
Like to have this clothing thought that atoms are the same everywhere. The way they mix up which makes the difference. So these are the references, and thank you really very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mona and Samuel. That was a beautiful presentation that I'm sure has sparked lots of thinking, and I would imagine lots of questions. So we're going to take a few questions in regards to this discussion. And so anyone, well, Vanessa, if you want to go first.
Hi. Well, first of all, congratulations for the organization of this meeting. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Well, what I would like to say comes with what Samuel just said, because I'm from Brazil as a continental country, and I feel we have similarities in this. We were colonized, we're called underdeveloped, but I think we have a chance to make it different. Since we are developing countries, we have the chance to make different from Europeans and Americans that went, well, the development of these countries brought us to this Anthropocene. So we have this chance, and we have a unique opportunity because we have a very rich heritage culturally, like indigenous culture. And these people, they already know what we need to know to learn. They know how to live in harmony with nature. So they have this knowledge and we have them around. So I think it's a big opportunity to just make it different. Since we are still undeveloped, we could develop in a different way, like grounded with the planetary health values. And well, I think that's it. And I appreciate very much the sewing between art and science. It's lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, really, Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa. Anybody else with thoughts, questions, suggestions? And Mona and Samuel, if you have any feedback to what Vanessa said, also feel free to come in.
Yes, I would like to add that indigenous knowledge system allow us to bring again all the traditional knowledge that has been being not on the floor, not available for us. So by reuniting as future scientists and physicians, we can bring this spirit once again and learn again the history of medicine and how our ancestors treated diseases and everything that is really behind the roots of the biomedicine, generally speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. I want to just say something really small, and I'm thinking about Mrs. Hand, the patient that was presented. And one of the things that I thought about her was that her mental health status was also really struggling, and just bringing to light that the communal nature of our communities, really globally, but looking at Africa specifically, they're eroding quickly. And so the support system that would have been there, where you have a community that comes to Mrs. Hand and such people, are eroded. So they don't have that support system, and there's so much more burden ongoing. And so just wanting to highlight that mental health in these issues is also really big as we've tried to figure out how we heal, how we do better, how we reconnect with ourselves again.
Yes, it's true, Nightingale, that the whole physiology, and they call it the allostatic system, where all the hormones, all the molecules, they are all mixed up in something in an inflammatory state and begin targeting certain organs. And even this chronic fatigue syndrome begins with psychological distress. So it really matters how urban living and how we approach the diseases in urban dwelling cities because we need this integrated method to search for the root causes behind all these comorbidities that becomes in high need of pharmacological treatment, unfortunately to say that. We need to research more into meditations and into all views of health, how they used to deal with even the headache, for example. So we have a lot to say, but I don't know if we still have time, and Chanel should be presenting now, I think. So thank you so much.
Thank you again, Samuel and Dr. Mona. It's like we all said, there's just so much content in there that can be addressed that could really trigger a discussion all on its own. But I will hand it over to Nathan, looking at the time, and then you can let us know where we stand.
Thank you, Nightingale, Samuel, and Mona. So from what I'm seeing, we might not have Chanel currently, but we do have Walia. Maybe the load setting or the electricity issue could be factoring in. So maybe Walia, if you are ready, if you have thoughts. Oh, you're together. Great, even better. So I'll hand it to the team, unified team of Walia and Chanel.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be presenting on an eco-health approach to research in Africa. So I'm going to base my presentation on the experiences of working on an eco-health project here in South Africa. But just to start off, next. Yeah, so my presentation outline, I'm just going to give a brief background of what eco-health approach is, and then talk about the 5 pillars of the eco-health approach and then also how we use that in one of our projects here in South Africa, and looking at the lessons that we got from actually implementing an eco-health project. So broadly, when we look at what is eco-health actually emphasizes transdisciplinary. So it moves away from looking at research only from a scientific perspective, but looking at the collaboration between scientists and non-scientists in solving problems. So what happens with this approach, for instance, with us was we actually we go into the community, and then we ask the community what the problems are. What is the problem that they're facing? And then we as researchers are supposed to work from that aspect. But also looking at the experience, what usually happens is that as a project, for instance, with us, we're working on schistosomiasis. So we already a group of researchers that working on schistosomiasis. So with that mindset, we're going with that mindset in the community. However, when we got to the community, we found that schistosomiasis was not even on their top 5 problems that they thought they were facing. So these are some of the challenges that we actually face, and that's why I'm trying to draw from. So I'll sort of mix the presentation with what is actually what we're supposed to be doing, or what is the appropriate way of doing it, but also looking at what actually happens and the challenges. So one thing, obviously, you as a group of researchers, you already have funding for a specific health problem, you get into the community, but the community does not even mention that problem. at all. So now it's up to us as researchers, which I don't know if that's ethical or not. Researchers sort of convince the community that actually you have a problem of schistosomiasis and get the community to buy into that problem. So the eco-health approach is a concept that seeks to address health issues in the context of its social culture and biophysical environment. So as lots of these approaches are coming across, like One Health and global health, we are seeing that move away from an individualistic approach to looking at what is the environment is in which this person is embedded, what is their physical environment, and so what is the culture in which this person is embedded in. So we look at, with the eco-health approach, obviously you're looking at the interaction between the person and the environment and how this actually results into health. So for instance, with us, when we're working in the northern part of KZN, and also looking at schistosomiasis. So we're looking at how is the environment, what is the culture, how do people interact with open water bodies? For instance, what is their livelihoods? How do they survive? So you look at how, like community gardens were very common, and they are close to the rivers, and unfortunately, those rivers had the snails, which are intermediate hosts for schistosomiasis. So with this approach, we recognize how important it is to have a balanced ecosystem, knowing that a balanced ecosystem actually contributes to the health of individuals. So when you look at the eco-health approach, there's 5 main pillars. Usually there were actually 3, but then they've added on systems thinking, sustainability, and knowledge to action. So the first one being transdisciplinary, it focuses on integration of methodologies and tools. So we're trying to move away from projects that are just use one methodology, but to actually incorporate many methodologies. But also one challenge that we saw on our projects, on some of the projects, was that you find that there's one methodology that dominates. So you don't really, so the project may be deemed as transdisciplinary, but you find that there's one aspect, for instance, maybe it's the social sciences which are dominating, or it's the applied sciences which are dominating, and we have a few, So it's very important for researchers to really have a transdisciplinarity where we have PIs from different disciplines, and really have a transdisciplinary project. Community participation is very key. So we need full engagement of community. Full engagement of communities in research, which also is sort of something that community engagement is also something that is becoming very recognized at the moment, with a lot of research in the past where researchers would just go into the community and conduct research, but now we realize how important community participation is, and the issue of community engagement, where we have to start as early as possible. I've been on projects where community, they're usually been on applied. No, it was actually a transdisciplinary project, but their strength was more on like basic sciences. And so when we go to the social science aspect, there was very little time and resources actually that were allocated to community engagement. And when we encountered a lot of challenges, a lot of resistance from the community. Whereas I worked on another project where the social science was much stronger, and we find that we're able to integrate into the community and work together with the community. So this is one aspect that is very important and needs to be recognized, that for one to have a successful eco-health project, community engagement is very critical, and it has to be incorporated into the planning, and you have to also have enough resources allocated to that aspect of research. Social and gender equity this is also a very important one, because with this, we've always looked at women. You know, when you look at gender equity, the focus has always been sort of biased towards women, but now we are realizing, I'm just recently working on a new project at the moment, and we are realizing now that there's actually a bias towards women, where so the project now is looking at gender intentionality, like where we have to actually look at both genders, both male and females, because we realize that after so much research looking at sanitation and gender, we find that we've actually biased, we are biased towards women, and there's some issues that now men are raising, and it's just like, it's a surprise, because we just thought, you know, men were okay. The women are the ones that are affected a lot with regards to poor sanitation. So this issue as well, it is something that has to be looked at from a different perspective, where we actually consider both male and female in terms of how we engage them into these projects. So since systems thinking, interrogating relationship between the ecology, the social culture, economic and governance. And when we look at sustainability, we just want to ensure that there's an uptake of research findings to bring about a desired change. Because sometimes you come into a project, once you come into a community, you execute a project, but by the time you leave, and that's it. But we want to ensure that people actually take there's actually an uptake of these research findings, and there's a change in behavior. And also this is linked to knowledge to action, where actually people's the health, members of community, actually their health actually improved based on the knowledge that came from the research, and they're able to apply that knowledge. So other lessons, this is that we picked from there, was the importance of stakeholders. Like with our Eco Health project, we know there was a lot of postgraduate students. I was one of them that were working on the project. According to our PI, postgraduate students actually come at a low cost, because most of us are on scholarships, and so we were on scholarships, and so so the cost of research cost, it lowers that down. And also another important factors that we learned from this eco-health approaches, to use community research assistants, where we actually recruit people from the community to be part of the research. And we have community advisory boards, where we have community members actually elect certain groups of people to represent them. So you identify the various departments, like Department of Health, that are important, and also community engagement. I've spent a lot of time on that. And also it's also very important to go back and give back the result. But the most thing that I wanted to highlight here is to actually identify all your stakeholders and do a stakeholder analysis, so that you know. So these are some of the stakeholders that I've listed, but it's important to actually put them in this box that I have here, where you know which ones should I keep satisfied, which ones should I manage closely, which ones should I just monitor, and which ones should I keep informed, because that's very important in how you interact with your stakeholders. So that those that you have to manage closely, you make sure that you manage them closely. So you are mostly the ones that have high power and high interest are the people that you want to make sure that you monitor very closely and you keep them happy, so that for your projects can be very successful. So this stakeholder analysis is very important to identify all your stakeholders and see just how much of an effort you need to put into to keep them happy. Yeah, so that's the end of my presentation, and Wale will be taking over from here.
Good evening, everybody. We apologize about the early glitch. We had load shedding, nothing that we could help ourselves. So I'm going to take off from where Chanel has ended and I'm going to go with the first principle of eco health, which is the transdisciplinary pillar. And this has to do with integration of research methodologies. Now we have a burst into decolonization, at least I know around the discourse of decolonization at university level, and I think something that should filter down into communities as well. And so I thought to pick on that because it's also one of my passions. The methodology that I'm actually using for my own personal study is autoethnography, which came out of ethnography, which I can also see the connections between that type of methodology and eco-health and decoloniality, as well as it either falling under the umbrella of eco-health or being or eco-health falling under that. Either way, it would be a meshing of methodologies. So I'm going to move on to my next slide, which is a quote about man. Man has been endowed with reason, with the power to create so that he can add to what he has been given. But up to now, he hasn't been a creator, only a destroyer. Forests keep disappearing, rivers dry up, wildlife's become extinct, the climate's ruined, and the land grows poorer and uglier every day. I know it's not a very encouraging slide. And also quite a bit of it to me came across as debatable, because I think in ancient times we have been creators, especially with indigenous groups before colonization hit us. We actually lived in harmony with the earth and ways to do that. So I'm going to move on to my next slide because I can see time as well going. Okay, so I just wanted to tell a little story that kind of plays out with these methodologies that that we are looking at. And it has to do with when I was a little kid, and not really a little kid, but a teenager, when I started bursting out on my face with pimples. I didn't have it wasn't the most terrible skin, but I started having pimples, and you don't want pimples on your face as a teenager. So, I went to complain to my mother, and I'm like, Mom, but these pimples, how do I get rid of them? And she said, you know what we used to do when we were little? She said, we used to take snails and make them walk all over our face. And I laughed at her. I thought this was both disgusting and ridiculous at the same time, because I was like, how do you take such a slimy, icky thing and put it on your face? It's like, but it worked, So I thought, okay, that's an interesting story. I laughed it off and I went off. As time went on, the next thing I saw was the Celtone products, which included snail extract. and my jaw dropped, because I thought, oh my gosh, somebody actually took this idea from an ancient practice and, of course, mixed it with a few other things and created this skincare. Now, of course, in creating skincare, there's also a whole lot of other things that you would need to consider. How are they extracting the mucin, it's called mucin or something like that, from the snails in order for it to be mixed into the product? Are they killing snails? How are they farming the snails? And things like that, because, everything is important to the environment. Everything was created for a purpose within the environment. I haven't, and then the next thing that came out of this skincare, which also incorporates possibly other chemicals, which we don't know if they're harmful or not to our skins, although they say it's safe to use. The next thing I see is people actually taking snails and putting them on their faces, some kind of therapy. Now, why I took this image and put it here was because of the heading that said bizarre new facial where snails crawl on your face and maybe the best way to rejuvenate your skin. And this concept of using the language that they use to describe this method of clearing your skin as bizarre. And then I look back at myself and my reaction to when my mom told me this, and how I thought that was funny, and I realized how colonized that I am as a person, and how much work I need to do to decolonize myself mentally, and how important it is for this to seep into communities as well. So it's important, I think, that we know first and understand what decolonization is. I know when we brought up decolonization into universities and into the university spaces, you know, there was a lot of people who were like, yes, decolonization, and a lot of the time it's mistaken for Africanization, and there were a lot of people that it raised a lot of fear and anger in, because it's the scary thing. So are you going to tell me that what my ancestors did is wrong, you know, and what do you mean? Are you going to throw out everything that I know, you know, and with the knowledge that I've, you know, gotten, and the advances we've made, are you going to do this? So it's important that we understand what it means to decolonize in this process of decoloniality. And we understand that it's a way to recenter knowledge that has been marginalized, because then, or being marginalized in being discredited. And like I said, I discredited information that my mom gave me about an ancient practice, because I just thought, ew, snails, you know what I'm saying? I didn't actually think about, hey, this is a, you know, and these are the ways in which we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot as Africans, is we have been made to think that things that we have practiced in ancient times have been problematic to ourselves. So decoloniality is a way of relearning the knowledge that has been marginalized and discredited, forced by obviously settler colonialism and racial capitalism and modernity. It is not a means to undermine modern achievements. So we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there are achievements that have come through that are very important, you know, although the original might be rudimental and mostly from you know, African education. If you look at Timbuktu and all of that, in terms of medicine, science, of course, those things need to advance and improve, and we're not going to throw the baby out with the water. And it's also a way for us to explore this, the impact of colonialism and settler colonialism, racial capitalism, and the ways they have displaced an array of modes of living, thinking, and being in our natural worlds. And this is where a connection is made for me to eco-health. So eco-health, is it a possibility that eco-health can be a decolonial methodology, or the other way around? I don't know, but there's a possibility, obviously, for the two to move or work side by side. So I took these three things that I wrote down, and I'm sure there are more, but this is what I see, or the thread that I see, or the connection that I see between decoloniality and eco-health, based on the three major, the three original principles. And even the other principles, if you really look at them, they are almost like an extension of the first three. And it will be to provide opportunities. Okay, first of all, it decenters the power dynamics. It shifts the power dynamics that have always been playing in our society, which is West is centralized and everybody else is marginalized. But what this does is provides opportunities for us to re-educate our communities. So there's one thing that I believe is that we need to bring in our old knowledge, to go back to the past, in order to make our people understand things that we knew, and how these things disappeared, in order for us to do better in future. It also provides opportunities for our communities to take ownership of their cultural and indigenous practices, as well as ownership of their land and environments. Because if we know how valuable our environments are, we would take ownership of them, and to make sure that they're, you know, looked after well. And it empowers us as our indigenous communities to produce their own products. And by products, I don't necessarily mean a physical product. It could be, you know, an image, I don't know, with which to compete with globally. This point for me came up because I deal with internationalization and decolonization at DUT. And the one thing that keeps coming up is, for instance, we're always partnering with overseas universities. And one thing that keeps disturbing me and I keep asking is, when are we going to partner with a local African university? It's also international. And we need to do that in order for us to create something that is authentically African, and that we can sell globally as well, that people from overseas would want to engage in as well. And not just people from the West. It could be people from, you know, the Aborigines from Australia. It could be Papua New Guinea, wherever. But we need to create those things for ourselves. And lastly, I just thought to put in the slide about the Tulsa massacre, that we have just recently celebrated the 100th year of, where a whole town that was set up and created by Black African descendants, so that they can, you know, make their own economy, live their own lives. They didn't have to walk into white neighborhoods to go and buy anything and be insulted or anything like that. So they built this. It was thriving. They were millionaires, and they were waiting to look for, and the oppressors were looking for a way to destroy this. So they used a false story and came and blew up this place. Now, why is the story important? It's important because, like I said initially, to know that you are able to do something is important. And also it encourages to say, well, we can rebuild. This information is not foregrounded in any of the history books, in any. So if our children coming up don't know these things, then they automatically think they have to start from scratch. One, they automatically think that we who have come before, or the people that have come before, are useless. And this is part of this oppressive thinking that has been going around for a while. So for me, just to let people know that it is a lie that we are useless, I thought to put that in. And I thought, you know, people need to look more into it, into the Tulsa economy at the time, which was also called Black Wall Street, and look at how people organized despite the harsh way they'd been sentenced by white supremacy at that time. So I'm going to end my presentation here. I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And I want us to think about how we can, you know, include more methodologies to work with side by side with our eco-health. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Walia. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think my connection. Okay, thank you, Chanel and Walia, for the great presentations. I am going to open this space now for any questions or comments from the audience. We're leaving this space open for any questions, input towards Chanel's and Walia's presentations. So feel free to step in. I don't see any hands up. So if anyone wants to just unmute and ask a question or share their thoughts.
So just a few thoughts from my side that I think build on what Martine had posted in the chats a little while back about how we can look at where we are. The comments had come up in the question of community members and the way that somehow we have been already shaped. So it's thinking about both theory and practice with the status quo, I think, in most places being divided, where academically the fields of decolonial studies and eco-health, if I'm not wrong, there aren't many places where you have an integrated research network. And in a lot of ways that builds on a theme that has come out from the presentations today about One Health, planetary health, eco-health, despite having extensive overlap and synergistic potential. Right now, we are mostly on our side doing our own things. And so I really like the way that Walia and Chanel were able to be together. Somehow Mona and Samuel did a beautiful job, but it is not the same, I think, whenever you're in different locations. And so it's a way that hopefully we can look to a future where we can be together much more and resonate with each other as people, the human touch, the nonverbal communication, but really looking forward in your own careers, in your own lives, what you see as next steps to bridge these divides, to make this integrated, holistic approach, not just to professional or research questions, but in our own homes and our own lives, ways that we can embody these values about being both people and animals and members of a community of life, despite the reality of a modern world that is so different and so divided and so broken.
Sorry, Nathan, the line was breaking a bit at the end. Is that a question to us?
Yeah, sorry, the question was maybe next steps for each of you as either researchers or professionally, just ways to integrate theory and practice and to unite environmental questions with human health or human well-being questions.
Well, like for me, I think going forward, I think we we had so many barriers before, like, you know, academics in their own space, researchers in their own space, people that work for various departments that we actually need as researchers, they're in their own space. So, you know, like approaches like eco-health, even just like social science, I don't know if it's coming from social science, but these new approaches, no, let me just say maybe these new approaches of eco-health, One Health, global health, planetary health, they're making us realize that actually, you know, we are actually better off without these barriers, without these boundaries that we've set up for ourselves. So I think going forward is also like us educating ourselves. I want to say decolonization, but I'm not sure if that's the correct thing. But we really have to, you know, unlearn certain things and learn new things of doing things, and also how we perceive the world, and understand that we are all equal. Because even when we go into communities as researchers, we have, you know, we're sort of like, you know, at the top there, and then the communities, we like the experts, we are going there to solve problems, and the community members are like people who have issues and they need us to sort of help them, or for us to solve problems. So I think that, you know, equality is important, where like we need to get rid of these lanes that we have of hierarchies and look at everyone on the same level, that we all need each other. You know, researchers need the communities, communities need researchers, the government, and so on and so forth. And that's the only way we can also go as far as influencing policy. So I like where things are. I mean, I'm a social scientist. I've been very passionate about social science, but I've also found myself in spaces where whenever I'm mixed with guys who do applied sciences, you feel less of a scientist, you know. But actually, we all actually need each other. So I think going forward is just that unlearning and learning that we are equal and we need to work together to make this planet a healthy planet for all of us to benefit. Thank you.
Hey Menzi, I see your message saying you think the term research needs to be decolonized, and I agree with that. I think you know, but I sit in a very unique position. It's not really unique, but I just like to make it feel like that. But at you know, in the university, I sit with in a group of people that works across entire faculties. So at the Durban University, so I'm in academic development. So most of the staff members, you know, come to me, although my actual job is e-learning. My background is actually in arts, and it's in fashion, and it's in photography, which is very weird. Don't ask me how I got into e-learning. But also I sit on the team, the decolonization team, the task team that they set up. I don't know why they created a task team. I thought it was very colonized to do such a thing. But anyways, because I have access to a lot of the staff members, and we have put in a what you call it, we've put in a proposal to run a decolonial project at DUT. I see that I can bring in and sell a lot of what ACOPPHE does. You know, and I think if any one of you would like at some point to participate, if I call on you to just come in and you know, share with our staff members all of these aspects that you share with us, or that we share here at ACOPPHE, it will be very nice for them to see that it doesn't have to be, if I'm doing you know, if I'm doing methodology, like critical race theory, for instance, it has to stick to critical race theory. If I'm doing autoethnography, it doesn't have to stick to that. Everything is connected. Everything has a thread that runs through it. And so I'm just putting out there that I do have access to all staff members at DOT as a way to spread, firstly, our message, introduce ACOPPHE to them as well. And then get people thinking, academics thinking about breaking these molds in their head about, you know, methodologies. So I just wanted to put it out there. Thank you.
So thank you very much again, Chanel and Walia, for your presentations. Lots of thoughts have been triggered in my mind, and one of the things that I'm thinking about is what Protas talked about earlier, thinking about the One Health concept or approach and how to integrate it into our communities. And I think part of it would be having sit-down conversations between people who are talking about all these different approaches, including the indigenous communities, indigenous people, and see how it actually applies and would work within this setting, within the African setting. And so, and I know that's what ACOPPHE is promoting greatly. So I look forward to hearing how those conversations will go, and having a platform where those conversations can happen, where we have planetary health people, indigenous people, One Health people, eco-health people, talking about what this means for us on the ground. The other thing that comes to my mind is, as we're talking about decolonization, also thinking about the tribal aspect within, especially the African communities, and that the tribal conflict is also a big hindrance towards development, and that finding ways to bridge through those gaps. Decolonization, I think, comes with a modern colonization, which began with especially Europeans colonizing other places like Africa. But even within Africa itself, there was colonization before the modern colonization. And so it's for us to think about how much healing needs to happen, not just from the modern space, but also looking at the pains and within our genes that have happened just during those eras. So a great conversation that again could be had for an entire session. So thank you so much, ladies.
So thank you all for somehow your patience and endurance. We are to the 2-hour mark since we started. We still have a couple of art presentations that, if possible, we would still like to share. Welcome, Menzi. I believe you have a poem that you can share with us, so maybe we do that, and then there is a song from Zoe that we can also share. And then if anyone has interest in staying on, especially to talk about next steps and how we can accelerate our momentum, center the love that we have for the environment and ultimately ourselves, then we'll be happy to stay on a bit longer. But again, thank you all for sharing and connecting. And Menzi, if you're able to share the poem, we'll welcome you to do that now.
Greetings, everyone. Honored to be here. Chanel. Yes, I kind of got cut off there.
And it looks like you're on mute somehow. Sorry.
Oh, can you
hear
me?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Hi. Is it possible for Chanel? Is it possible for Chanel the voice sent? I'm unable to recite it now with something I wrote only this morning. It's quite. I did not cram it in my mind. I have not studied it yet. If it's possible, can she share the voice notes? I'm not sure if that's possible at all. Also, the network over here in this restaurant where I'm at is not great, and I have to go fetch my people, my partners at the place. So I'm so sorry. I can't share the code right now. I have to share it in a day. I apologize for that. Something I've but to be here, and I enjoy everything that has been shared so far. The intersectionality of everything is just, it's mind-blowing. It requires a lot of work from all of us. Yeah.
This is the one. But
Hi, Menzi, we're trying to do that. We're just trying to see if we can do that.
I'm wondering if we could, Nathan, if you're ready with Zoe's, you could share Zoe's as Walia and Chanel figure out the how to share Menzies.
Yes, I'll do that now. And so Zoe has a song and also a description about the backstory of what led to the song. So I will read first what she shared and then play the song. So hopefully everyone can see the screen as I read. So the title of the song is Sangha, For the Love of Life by Emmanuel Desroches and Zoe Rosar. When we wrote that song, it was while facing a rose red setting sun. It came without effort. It was written in the evening on one day and recorded and polished the next. We had both gone through hell and back in the last year. One of us had experienced psychosis from heartbreak and compounded abuse from people who take from our goodness because we are good. And the other had just gone through a surgery, which removed mental blockages with regards to should be and ought to be. Bam, I don't care about you. I will no longer follow the norms of a sick society. I am going to be free of all that stuff. Our hearts played as one. We had understood how humans did not know how to be 100% truthful towards themselves. We realized that people who lie are first of all, foremostly lying to themselves. We realized that we were the only ones responsible for our happiness. We could have guides, but at the end of the day, the flip choice is solely and only ours. Facing a mirror of so many shadows is disgusting, so uncomfortable at first. As we embrace every part of the ugly, we project and perceive. We start to understand it. We start to deconstruct it. We start reassuring the insecurity deeply buried within. We see how that bag of bricks is no longer ours. We drop it and know that the past does not define who we are and choose to be here on out, compassionate and admirative of life, free. Then is only left light. The flip choice is solely and only ours. Reverence to the guides who give us the confidence to drop the past, understand experiences as lessons, design new habits, and fake it until we make it. The first step always feels like you are an imposter, but the more that step is practiced, the more we lose the sense of being an imposter and earn the sense of being it, here, now, is, love, life. To choose a new now and practice every now with the same intense love for life, with as much burning vehemence as the rose-red setting sun. Hence the sentence, Om, I am a light in my own darkness. So I will go to the YouTube link if I'm able to somehow.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and it really enhances what we will hopefully hear if I'm able to get this. There we go. Oops.
I wouldn't believe if I had known it would have happened to me. Yeah. I would have run to the seashores naked, take a cold bath in the sea and feel it freedom. The feelings of being left behind. Oh my God, the feelings of being left behind. But I'm alive. I'm alive in my own darkness. the truth. On the rise, there is no doubt. This is a love supreme. Yeah. Oh, I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness. Oh, I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness, in my own darkness, in my own darkness. I am alive. I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness. I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness. I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness. Oh, I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness. Oh, I am alive in my own darkness, in my own darkness.
So I hope the sounds came through clearly, but I think that was a beautiful message, very resonant with who we are as ACOPPHE and what we are doing together here for the World Environment Day celebration. So just want to open up a little space to hear if any feedback, any questions. Hopefully the description that Zoe shared about what's led to the song being written was able to connect strongly with the song that was just shared.
Well, I want to just say how I could just hear them as they speak so truly and bring it out in song. And the instrument, which Martinez says is an original string instrument in their country, is also just bringing out the song so well, the feelings so well. So just really appreciate the honesty and vulnerability that they have shared, as well as the trust.
And Martine, I see that you have written some in the chats, but since you know Zoe and are closely connected to her, I don't know if you have anything that you would like to share directly about what you know of her or on behalf of Zoe.
Well, you're taking me a little bit. She has taken me. I wasn't aware of what I was going to live tonight. So the last words I said that I would have to thank you for introducing me today to you all guys. I'm sorry I'm not putting the camera because I'm really emotional and moved now. So it's been great to meet you today, guys. And these are the kind of gifts that Zoe gave to me. And I believe that this is all about the love that I have felt today with you guys, because she's not there. And maybe it was made universally on purpose that she wasn't there. So maybe I could leave this this event with you guys and maybe share what I would like to share on this song with you. I have been with Zoe through these times in Mauritius, and it's kind of difficult for us here and for the sustainability, because it has a lot to do with decolonization, such as the girls presented, and so much with what was presented on non-communicable diseases and so on. And it was really great to have you, and thank you once again to Zoe. These words, I have heard them from the lyrics a lot, but it always, as I said, makes me different always, and learning some new things and discovering new things through this song every time I listen to it. So I hope that this song will be a great anthem for one of our projects, maybe, because song and art bring people together, and vibrations. This is what is most important, the vibrations. And so I will leave you on these words. Thank you very much, and have a happy and wonderful Environment Day, so that we don't ever lose time to celebrate it only one day in the year and celebrate it every day. Bye.
Thank you so much, Martine. And no need to apologize for being off video. That you were touched speaks very powerfully, and especially what you were able to share from knowing Zoe. And as we said earlier, we hope to follow the lead of Bwalia and Chanel being together, hoping that one day soon we will be able to connect directly in special places to share the stories of love that we have for each other and our shared, beautiful, amazing home on planet Earth. So the poem from Menzi, I was not able to open it by email. I don't know if Chanel and Bwalia, you have made any progress on that end. If you could.
I've uploaded it into the chat. Let's see if it's going to work. That's
okay.
what I don't.
The smallest things, the smallest of things. When created beings had grown too many and too weary, they looked back to simpler times, unpolluted rivers and oceans, whispered to the trees and shouted at the rocks. The trees and the rocks responded with deep breaths, chants, and circle songs. The creatures of the deep dreamed with the creatures of the wing. Together they imagined the lives of the beasts of burden, the once proud walkers of the land had become workers from the womb to the tomb. Beautiful lives had succumbed to fear, hard labor, war, and loathing. The fruits, medicines, and magical elements of the forest, suffocated by ambition, greed, and malicious intention. The dreaming whales, proud elephants turned to mourners, weeping and wailing against a harvest of thorns. They remembered the slaughter. Remembering the glorious days when we reverenced the rhinoceros horn, which reminded us all that what is above reflects what is below, and what is within is reflected on the outside. Meanwhile, a few earthlings saved the seeds. Tides, tribes close to extinction, whispered quiet prayers, speaking in the languages of fire, earth, water, and ether. All their small deeds grew into a tidal wave of eagerness to begin a new way, a new earth, of conscious living based on the best of the ancient ways. Water, earth, and all life forms once again became sacred.
That's it. But did you hear it?
Yes, it came through well from my side. So thank you for sharing, and thank you, Menzi, for these powerful words. And what I'm feeling is just an interest in being still, being silent, being quiet, appreciating and celebrating our connection in this space together. And welcome anyone who would like to verbalize or share anything that is in your mind and your heart as we temporarily part ways until we meet again.
Hello. Just, just to say I love you guys deeply. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for existing. And I think the work is already started. It's really hard to figure out how to start, where to, but I think each one of us already started with your children, your family, your friends, talking about this, calling people to watch this. And I think it's gonna go faster than we think. And connecting projects, so I think it's communication, connection, and spreading knowledge is the first step, like around us. Well, I think that's it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vanessa. I also just want to thank you, Menzi, specifically, and everybody else. I know, like you shared, you came up with that poem probably today or last night. I'm not sure which, but it is just beautiful what came out of you, and so much to be thankful for and to think about. I also want to just extend my thanks to everyone for sharing this space with me today as we think about what we do for ourselves, our communities, our environment, and that we chose to, in some way, celebrate World Environment Day sharing like this. In my hometown in Kenya, my little space where I was raised, the children in that space cleaned the area and talked about what it means to connect the environment, environmental health with their own health. And so even though I'm miles away from them, I did feel that connection, but most of all, also really appreciated sharing this space with you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. I think Samuel is
Thank you,
needing.
everyone. Thank you. It's been beautiful being here today with everyone. A wonderful, wonderful time. And wow, I also was beginning to feel emotional right from the time of the poems and the songs and all. And I really, really, really enjoyed this meeting. Thank you very much to everyone, to all those who've been part of this program, to all the presenters and the wonderful presentations, Bola and Chanel, and to all those who have contributed in one way or the other, time and all. Thank you very much from me here to everyone. Have a wonderful night. Or day as it is for Nightingale and Nathan.
Thank you so much, everyone. We
Good
also
night.
had a
We're
good
going to
time.
get supper now.
Bye bye. People.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Gugu, for the poem. It was beautiful. And it's good to see you. It takes a long time to get to see your beautiful face. So it's really nice to see you, I must say.
I feel so honored. Thank you so much, Nightingale. And thanks for the opportunity, Nathan. Bye.
Yes, you're most
Bye.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Noha, for staying. I know it is very late, but you chose to stay. Thank you, Bashiru.
Thanks, Bash. Thank you, Nightingale.